Hello and good evening everyone. For this second video in Underdog Week, we're headed into the Great Recession to look at the Lavaggi LS1. The story of this car is rather inextricably linked with Signor Giovanni Lavaggi himself. Inter-Serie champion for Porsche Kramer in 1993 and well liked by the team for his engineering background and good feedback as a result, he managed to get himself both a Formula 1 and an FIA Sports Car Championship drive for several years in the 90s. Driving for Pacific and Minardi in 95 and 96 as the oldest driver in the field, without success, and scoring 3 wins in sports cars, including at the 1995 Daytona 24 Hours in a Kramer K8 and the 2001 1000 kilometers of Monza in a Ferrari 333 SP. Coming off of these successes, he founded Scuderia Lavaggi to continue his racing efforts and make the term driver-constructor great again. Inspired by the likes of Enzo Ferrari, with whom he shared a birthday and from whom he claims astrological inspiration, Jack Brabham, and Bruce McLaren, and Jim Hall, who I'm throwing in there not because he was mentioned, but because I really like chaparrals. To this end, he built this vehicle, the LS1. Reportedly the only Le Mans prototype and quite possibly the only race car to be designed and built in Monte Carlo, or Monaco, depending on which designator you prefer, the LS1 was designed with a considerable degree of secrecy before its grand reveal at the 2006 1000 kilometers of the Nürburgring. When it broke cover, the styling caused some substantial comment, as, let's be honest, Signor Lavaggi's Formula 1 background is coming through in entirely non-subtle ways. The monocoque was, as expected, carbon fiber, presumably of Lavaggi's own design, because I can't find any information that indicates otherwise. Quick post-production interruption. I just want to provide some additional clarity on what I mean when I say there's no information about where the chassis came from. Even Lavaggi's website just says new carbon fiber monocoque with no indication of it being sourced from somewhere else. Most of the resources that I typically use similarly just either say it's a new chassis or a new design without giving any indication of whether or not it was built or sourced from one of the more traditional chassis manufacturers like Lola or Dallara or any of the others that I just can't think of at the moment. Multimatic, Riley. So, with that being said, we're operating under the assumption that it was, at the very least, a custom design, subcontracted out to somebody else to do the actual carbon fiber manufacturing, or, more likely, given the fact that the car is labeled as having been designed and built in Monaco/Monte Carlo, it may well have been constructed as a one-off sort of hand-laid carbon fiber rather than the more traditional modern, yes, that's a phrase that makes sense. This is getting very rambly. Versus the more commonly used manufacturing methods for race cars these days, with the rear two-thirds of the car rather more conventional looking than that Formula 1 front. According to the marketing, it was designed to accommodate pretty much any engine then permitted in the LMP1 regulations, but as revealed, it was powered by a naturally aspirated 6-liter the V8 motor, unusually mounted just forward of the left wheel. Nah, I'm just kidding. It was clearly bed-mounted just like pretty much every other prototype. Sourced from Pro Motor Engines, which is a rather redundant name for a business, it sent power to the rear Oz racing wheels through a 6-speed sequential manual gearbox that had started life as a Hewland unit before modification by Lavaggi for reasons, presumably packaging. Of course, we had Brembo carbon ceramic brakes on all 4 wheels with ventilated discs and double wishbone pushrod actuated suspension with an interesting stiff third spring mounted between the two to provide adjustability to the ride height and improve high-speed running, which is rather clever. The big V8 was reportedly good for 600 horsepower and 590 torques, with total vehicle weight just a hair under 2,100 pounds, or 925 kilos. Having passed the FIA crash tests without any difficulty, everything really looked rather good for our Underdog. But of course it's being featured on this channel this week, so something must have gone terribly wrong. And indeed it did, but through no real failure of Signora Lavaggi's. The car struggled mostly with electrical issues from third-party sourced systems that compromised reliability. When it ran well, usually mid-pack amongst other LMP1s that didn't have 4 silver rings on the front, or a lion. And a replacement power plant from AER, the same folks who made the MG engine from yesterday's video, provided sufficient additional performance to put the LS1 on pole for the 2008 Vallelunga 6-hour race, only to drop to 10th with an oil leak. Actually, that AER engine was a 4-liter V8, which probably wasn't, but might just have been 2 of those MG engines splodged together. TBD. Anyway, after the aforementioned electrical issues were resolved by redoing the electrical wiring loom in-house, the Ford V8 became the prominent issue due to a poor dry sump design, costing them a whole season of diagnostic work due to their limited testing budget. 2008 brought the replacement engine, but also brought the breakdown of the world's financial system, and thus all of Scuderia Lavaggi's sponsorship money. Running as a self-funded team for the 2008 season, Lavaggi managed to enter 3 races with Wolfgang Kaufmann as a co-driver, retiring each time with minor mechanicals. 2009 saw the FIA change the rules, Kel Surprise again, which severely hobbled the car, as Lavaggi was out of money for a wind tunnel to optimize the car for compliance, and this essentially brought a close to the program, with a couple of half-hearted entries in the season. But the new regulations destroyed the LS1's drivability, and the car has been in mothballs since. Lavaggi reportedly redesigned the car for 2011, but was unable to secure funding to recertify the car, and thus the mothballs remain. Perhaps in another couple of years we'll see it make a return debut at Endurance Racing Legends or some similar race series. But until then, TBD. That brings us to the end of this video. We'll see you tomorrow to move just a bit further towards the present with one of my personal favorite modern prototypes. And that just leaves it for me to say, as always, thank you for your time this evening, or whenever and wherever you are watching, and to wish you all a good night and a good tomorrow.